This clause flips the liability. If you sign this, sir, your company takes the fall. The boardroom went dead quiet. Melissa Kate's words hung in the air like a suspended hammer, just waiting to drop. 12 years old, standing at the glass doorway of the 14th floor conference room, in borrowed sneakers and a janitor's badge. She pointed straight at the contract that Travis Hunter had been seconds away from signing. Travis's pen hovered mid-air, his silver brows furrowed. His wife, Monique Harris, blinked sharply. Nathaniel Cooper, the two slick Texan businessmen with a polished grin, let out a low, awkward chuckle. "Excuse me?" he asked, his voice too calm, too measured. "I read that clause on page 14, Melissa continued. "It shifts all merger-related liabilities to Hunter Investments. If anything goes wrong after the merger, fraud, lawsuits, defaults, your company takes the full hit. Van's firm walks away clean." The young executives around the table exchanged uneasy glances. One man pulled the document closer. Another tapped a tablet to double-check the page. Monique leaned forward. She shouldn't even be here. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. We love seeing how far these stories reach, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss tomorrow's special video. Now, let's jump back in. Enjoy the story. "She's the janitor's daughter," someone murmured. But Melissa didn't flinch. Just 8 hours earlier, the world had still been simple. The cleaning crew made their way through Hunter Investments' upper floors like quiet clockwork. Melissa, dressed in a faded hoodie and a lanyard marked visitor maintenance, sorted shredded files and wiped down glass doors while her mother vacuumed down the hall. That was the routine. No noise, no questions, just finish and leave until she sees the folder. It was left in the copier tray, slightly open. Its stamped cover marked the final draft, merge agreement. Something about it called to her, not curiosity, instinct. Melissa wasn't like other kids her age. She didn't scroll endlessly on her phone. She read policy manuals, watched business documentaries with her grandfather, and once wrote a school essay titled How Enron Collapsed. She opened the folder slowly, eyes scanning the legalese. Then she paused. It was subtle, buried in paragraph C, line 3 of the liability clause, but it was there. A reversal of responsibility. If the deal collapsed, or if legal issues surfaced afterward, Hunter Investments, not Cooper Global, would absorb the legal and financial ruin. It was a trap. "Mom," Melissa said, rushing down the hallway, "have you ever seen a contract that hands over the whole company like this?" Clayton Rhodes barely looked up from polishing a glass wall. "Melissa, stop it. Don't mess with their stuff. But what if you don't want us both out of a job?" Melissa shut her mouth, but her mind didn't. It kept racing. Now in the present, the men and women in the boardroom sat frozen. Monique's hand tensed around the armrest. Van's gaze narrowed. Travis Hunter stared at Melissa. Slowly, he lowered the pen. "You say that clause flips liability?" His voice was calm. Too calm. "Yes, sir," Melissa replied. "It's disguised in plain text. Legal sounding. But if your team didn't read every line, it's meant to confuse. It doesn't protect your company. It sets you up to take the fall." Monique's voice cracked like frost. "Travis, this is nonsense. She's a child." But Travis was no longer listening to his wife. His eyes had shifted to the page in front of him. He flipped to page 14, scanned, paused, and something in his jaw tightened. Derek leaned forward. "Are we really giving weight to conspiracy theories from someone who polishes door handles?" Melissa's cheeks flushed, but her voice didn't waver. "You can laugh, but if he signs that, your company's name is on every lawsuit that follows." A long pause, then Travis's voice, low and decisive. "Escort her out." Security moved swiftly. Melissa stood tall even as they led her toward the door. But just before it shut behind her, she looked back once and met Travis Hunter's eyes. For the briefest moment, he didn't see a janitor's daughter. He saw a warning, a mirror, and a mistake he had almost made. His pen never touched the paper. The next morning, the silence at Hunter Investments was different. Not calm, tight, unspoken. Something had shifted. Melissa Kate sat alone in the lobby's security office, hands folded, chin high, heart pounding. The building's marble floors reflected cold light from the tall windows behind her. She'd been here for over an hour. No one spoke to her. No one offered water. No one told her what would happen next. Her mother sat beside her, shoulders stiff, face unreadable. Clayton Rhodes hadn't said a word since they were pulled off the night shift and asked to wait downstairs, but the worry in her eyes said it all. "I'm sorry, Mum," Melissa finally whispered. Clayton Rhodes turned her head slowly. "You should be," she said flatly. "I clean this building to keep food on the table. Not so you can march into boardrooms like you own the place." Melissa looked down. "I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just read something dangerous, and I couldn't let him sign it." "I raised you to be brave, Melissa," Clayton Rhodes said softly. "But I didn't raise you to be reckless." Before Melissa could respond, the door opened. A stern woman from HR walked in with a clipboard, heels tapping sharp against the tile. "Mrs. Kate," she said, not looking at Melissa. "You've been placed on leave, pending review. We'll call you." Clayton Rhodes's lips tightened. She stood up, clutching Melissa's arm. "Come on." Melissa's stomach twisted as they exited the building. As the cold Miami air hit her cheeks, she glanced back one last time at the tower of glass and steel, the place she thought she could make a difference in. Now she wasn't even allowed inside. Meanwhile, 30 floors above, Travis Hunter sat alone in his private office. The unsigned contract lay in front of him, the pages spread out like a crime scene. His finger traced the clause Melissa had pointed out. Sub-paragraph C, line 3. She had been right. The language wasn't just misleading. It was deliberate, cleverly written to appear standard while setting up Hunter Investments to absorb full liability. He rubbed his temples slowly. "How the hell did I miss this?" Monique's voice echoed in his memory from the night before. "It's a standard clause, Travis. Just trust me. Trust." That word used to mean something. He opened his laptop and began cross-referencing other contracts with Nathaniel Cooper's firm. Legal language, subsidiary names, offshore structures, all of it, too clean, too coordinated. His phone buzzed. "Monique," he hesitated, then answered. "You didn't sign it, did you?" she said immediately. "No," Travis replied, voice flat. "You're overthinking it. We vetted Nathaniel's firm. You're letting that girl get in your head." He paused. She saw what none of us did. Monique laughed softly, too soft. "Come on. She's a teenager, the janitor's daughter. You're really going to question me over a child?" Travis didn't reply. "I'm coming up," Monique said, and ended the call. Down the block, Melissa sat on the couch at home, a mug of cocoa growing cold in her hands. The apartment was small, warm, and lived in. Her mother sat silently across from her, clicking through job listings. "Do you regret it?" Melissa asked quietly. Clayton Rhodes sighed. "I regret that you lost faith in grown-ups doing their jobs." Melissa didn't argue, but deep inside, something told her she hadn't been wrong. A ping interrupted the quiet. It was an email from a name she didn't know. Robert Barnes. Subject line, "You saw it too." Melissa's eyes widened. She clicked. Inside was a short message. "I used to work there. I know what you saw. If you're willing to talk, I'll listen." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she began to type because, maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. That evening, Travis opened his safe and pulled out an old file labeled Hunter Internal Barnes Review. He flipped through pages of flagged risks, buried audits, reports his board had ignored 2 years ago, and on one sheet, scrolled in red pen, "Risk exposure, too centralized. If they plant one signature trap, we're done." Signed, Robert Barnes. Travis leaned back, eyes closing, and for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Monique Harris never liked to wait. She walked into Travis' office with the grace of someone who had never been told no. Her heels tapped sharply against the oak floors as she made her way to the sleek black desk where her husband sat, staring not at her, but at the contract. "It's still sitting there," she said, folding her arms. "You've had a day." Travis didn't look up, "and I'll need more." Monique's smile faded. "Travis, this deal is time-sensitive. Nathaniel is offering terms no one else would touch. You saw the numbers. I also saw a liability clause that nearly gutted my company." Monique walked around the desk, trailing a manicured nail along the edge of the contract. One clause. Legal language. "You know how these things work. Don't tell me you're giving weight to the janitor's daughter over me." That made him look up slowly. "She saw it," he said. "No one else did. Not you, not the legal team, not even me." There was a long pause. Monique's expression didn't flinch, but her tone dropped a degree. "She's a child, Travis, and she just got you to question everything. That should concern you." "No," he said, standing up. "What concerns me is that she was right." Later that evening, Melissa sat huddled near the radiator in their apartment, flipping through pages Mr. Barnes had sent her in encrypted PDF files, tax statements, shell company breakdowns, merger language comparisons. She didn't understand all of it, but she understood enough. They were building a trap. Barnes had confirmed it on their call earlier. Nathaniel Cooper had used nearly identical language in a merger back in Houston. The target company took full liability. Within 6 months, it collapsed under legal fees. Cooper walked away richer. Melissa highlighted key words: indemnification, contingent liability, burden of performance. She didn't know every term, but she knew something rotten when she smelled it. "I can't believe he's married to that woman," Melissa muttered. Her mum, washing dishes behind her, let out a humorless snort. Power Mary's ambition. It's always been that way. At the same time, Travis sat at the bar inside the private gold lounge overlooking downtown Miami. He wasn't drinking, he was watching. At a far table, half shielded by frosted glass, sat Monique. Across from her, Nathaniel Cooper. They were laughing. Monique's hand rested lightly on Derek's wrist. His grin was wide, easy, like old friends or something more. Travis's jaw tensed. He couldn't hear the words, but the body language told him enough. Monique leaned in. Derek nodded, then handed her a small flash drive before gently brushing her fingers in a gesture that wasn't professional. Travis turned away, bile rising in his throat. Was this the woman he'd built a life with? Or had she been using him from the beginning? Back at home, Melissa's phone buzzed. Text from Barnes. Look into Monaquera's spending habits. 3 offshore transfers in her name. Cayman, British Virgin Islands, and Zurich. Melissa's eyes widened. "She's in on it," she whispered. "She's not just clueless. She's involved." She opened her laptop and pulled up public transaction records. Her hands trembled. There it was, Monique Harris's name, tied to a dormant trust account in the British Virgin Islands. At that very moment, Travis opened his email and saw a message from his bank's internal compliance team. Subject: Suspicious access activity. Internal transfer alert. He clicked. Monique had attempted to authorize a $2.5 million movement from one of the company's dormant reserve accounts. It was stopped just in time. Travis sank into his chair. The noose wasn't just tightening. It was inside his own home. Somewhere in the quiet of the night, 3 people couldn't sleep. Travis Hunter, now certain he was standing on a crumbling foundation. Melissa Kate, gripping the pieces of a puzzle far too big for a 1-2-year-old. And Monique Harris, seated beside Nathaniel Cooper in a black SUV, whispering, "He's starting to dig." To which Nathaniel replied calmly, "Then we bury him before he reaches the roots." It started with an email. No subject line, no sender name, just a single audio file. Travis Hunter hesitated before opening it. He had been staring at the ceiling of his office for the past hour, long after the last assistant had gone home. The silence felt heavier these days, like the building itself was holding its breath. He clicked play. Monique's voice came through first, calm and calculating. "He won't question it. Not if I push at the right time." Then Nathaniel Cooper's deep drawl. "And if he does, then we remind him what he has to lose." Travis froze. He replayed it 3 times. And when it finally sank in, something inside him cracked. Not loud, not visible, but final. He forwarded the file to his private attorney, then leaned back and stared at the ceiling again. This time, not with confusion, but with clarity. Monique wasn't just involved, she was leading it. Melissa stood outside the massive bronze doors of the Herald Washington Library, clutching a folder and a flash drive Barnes had mailed her that morning. Her fingers were numb, not from the cold, but from fear. Everything they had pieced together now pointed in one direction. Someone was actively trying to bury Hunter Investments. She stepped inside and made her way to the computer lab. The files were encrypted, but Barnes had included a handwritten key. As she typed, the truth unfolded. 3 merger attempts, 3 ruined companies, all tied to Nathaniel Cooper, and in the background of each one, buried deep in the documents, were traces of Monique Harris's digital approval credentials. She wasn't just helping Cooper, she'd been doing it for years. That evening, Melissa tried to deliver the physical documents to Robert Barnes at his apartment, but when she arrived, the door was ajar. Inside, empty. No signs of struggle, no sign of Barnes, just a single envelope on the kitchen table labeled MW. She opened it. Inside were 2 things, a thumb drive and a post-it note. They know I'm helping you. Don't come back here. Find someone you trust soon. Back in the city, Travis sat in his car outside an old courthouse. The building had closed years ago, but he wasn't here to speak with a judge. He was meeting Shanice Miller, a civil rights attorney and former prosecutor known for taking cases no one else dared touch. She entered without fanfare, her black wool coat flapping behind her like a cloak of quiet justice. "Mr. Hunter," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "You came to the right person, but this is bigger than contract fraud." "I know," Travis said. "You're dealing with organized financial subversion, maybe racketeering. I need to protect my company," he said, "and I need to protect a girl who saw it first." Shanice raised an eyebrow. "A girl? She's 12. My name's Melissa Kate." She caught it before any of us did. For the first time, the lawyer smiled. "Then she may be our most valuable witness." The next morning, Melissa returned to Hunter Tower. Security was tighter now. She wasn't on the list. So she waited, cold fingers wrapped around a bag of evidence, until one of the junior staff, someone she recognized from late-night vacuuming shifts, walked by. He paused, glanced around and whispered. Mr. Hunter said, "If you ever come back, I should take you straight up." When Travis saw her, something in him softened. He stood, extended a hand, not like a CEO, but like a man finally seeing his own blind spots. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "I owe you the truth." Melissa looked up at him, her voice quiet but firm. "Then let's get it out before someone else disappears." They sat side by side in his private conference room, papers and screens spread around them like a battlefield map. Shanice Miller joined minutes later, nodding once at Melissa. "This is your war now," she said. "But with the right moves, we win it before they even know we're fighting." Melissa nodded, nerves taut, but steady. Because for the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. And the cracks in the marble weren't just breaking apart a building. They were letting the truth come through. The courtroom wasn't scheduled yet. No subpoenas had been issued. No press conference had broken the news. But the war had begun. Inside Travis Hunter's office, the walls were no longer decorated with corporate awards and investment forecasts. They were now lined with whiteboards scribbled full of timelines, connections, bank transfers, and alias names. At the center of it all sat Melissa Kate, a 1-2-year-old girl with a borrowed laptop and a folder full of secrets. Shanice Miller stood near the window, phone pressed to her ear, voice low but urgent. Travis, silent, pored over a printed spreadsheet, his jaw clenched tight. Then Shanice hung up. "That was my contact at the Justice Department. They're watching Cooper quietly, but they need more to move forward." Melissa reached into her backpack and slid over a yellow file. "This just came in," she said. "From Barnes before he disappeared." Travis took the folder. Inside were offshore account ledgers. 3 names jumped off the page. Monique Harris, Nathaniel Cooper, and a company called Raven Cross Holdings, a shell corporation registered in Buys, funneling payments every quarter from failed merger settlements. Shanice whistled. "This is more than fraud. This is a long game, predatory, calculated, and it started right under my roof," Travis said bitterly. That night, Melissa and her mother sat on the fire escape of their apartment building. The city below buzzed with yellow taxis and music floating up from restaurant patios. Clayton Rhodes handed Melissa a mug of chamomile tea, her hands trembling. "They called again," she said. "Told me if I don't keep quiet, they'll cancel your school record. Said they can make things disappear." Melissa stared ahead. They already tried. "You're a child, Melissa. This isn't your fight. It became mine the second they used people like us as their cover." Her voice was calm, certain. And in that moment, Clayton Rhodes saw something she hadn't expected to see. Not defiance, but purpose. A sense that Melissa wasn't trying to prove anything. She was simply trying to make something right. The next day, Travis entered the main hall of the Hunter Foundation Gala, wearing a black tuxedo and a tighter expression. The gala was his wife's idea. Charity, media, smiling donors. It had always been Monique's domain. But tonight, Travis took the mic. "Before we begin," he said, eyes sweeping the glittering crowd, "I want to speak to you not as a CEO, but as a man who's made mistakes." Monique froze beside the champagne table, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. "Years ago, I believed building an empire meant trusting only the numbers," Travis continued. "But numbers don't betray you. People do," the room murmured. A few eyes darted toward Monique. "I've reopened every document our board has ever signed, and what I found, what one brave young woman found, has shaken me to my core." Shanice stood near the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Travis stepped down from the mic and left the room before anyone could ask questions. That night, Melissa sat in front of her bedroom window, watching the blinking lights of the skyline. A folder lay open on her lap filled with newly flagged emails. One line from Monique to Nathaniel stood out like a blade. He's starting to pull away. You know what to do. Just as she began copying it to a secure drive, the lights flickered. Then her laptop screen went black. Her phone vibrated. One message. Unknown number. "Stop digging or we dig first." Melissa's hands shook, but she didn't close the laptop. She picked up a Sharpie and wrote 3 words on a fresh page. Not backing down. Because this wasn't just a company anymore. It was a battleground. And the girl they thought no one would listen to was becoming the voice no one could ignore. The morning headlines hadn't broken yet, but the whispers had already begun. In the financial district, rumors passed between elevators and espresso machines. Hunter Investments was under internal review. An anonymous whistleblower, a halted merger. Some said it was routine. Others said it smelled like blood in the water. Inside his office, Travis Hunter sat stone-faced, staring out at the city's skyline. "I built this company from scratch," he muttered, "and I nearly handed it over to a ghost in a tailored suit." Shanice Miller, seated across from him, flipped through the evidence file. "You didn't hand it over." You paused. "That's what matters." She set down the page with the BICE account routing numbers. Van's signature move. "But it's no longer just about business," she added. "It's about justice." Meanwhile, Monique Harris descended the grand staircase of their Lakeshore Drive penthouse, dressed in navy silk as if nothing was unraveling beneath her feet. The housekeeper handed her a cream envelope. This was left in the mailbox. She opened it casually. Inside a single photograph, Travis standing with Melissa and Shanice, heads bent over a set of documents, 3 signatures circled in red, and a sticky note. "You're losing control." Monique didn't blink. She reached for her phone and called Nathaniel Cooper. That evening, at a private business summit hosted at the Four Seasons, Nathaniel Cooper strolled through the crowd like a man with nothing to hide. Expensive whiskey in hand, charming investors one smile at a time. But something was different tonight. People nodded, but too briefly. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered after he passed. He found Travis near the balcony. "Well, now," Nathaniel drawled. "You've stirred quite the pot." Travis didn't shake his hand. "I haven't stirred anything," he replied. "Just stopped, pretending I was blind." Nathaniel leaned in, voice smooth. "You go public with this and you'll bury more than just me. You'll drag your wife's name into the dirt. Your board will panic. The stock will crash. Is that the legacy you want?" Travis didn't flinch. "I'd rather lose company than live a lie." Back at Melissa's apartment, her mother hung up the landline and turned to her daughter. "That was the school principal," she said quietly. "Someone's filed a complaint that you're emotionally disruptive on school property." Melissa blinked. "I haven't even been to school this week." Clayton Rhodes's hands trembled. "They're trying to push you off balance. You're making them nervous." Melissa looked down at the pile of files in her lap. She didn't feel nervous. She felt ready. By the end of the week, Shanice filed the first legal motion, request for injunction and independent audit of Von Global. She also filed a whistleblower protection petition for Melissa Kate. The media caught wind before sunset. Breaking. Hunter Investment suspends merger pending legal review. Anonymous teen, identified as key witness. Photos of Melissa from a school website were cropped, shared, retweeted. Some praised her, others doubted her. A few attacked, but none could ignore her. At dawn the next morning, Travis walked into the boardroom and placed a stack of documents on the table. His executives sat waiting, faces drawn tight with tension. "I should have seen this sooner," he began. "But I let comfort blind me." He passed out the audit, the shell companies, the emails, the audio clip. Then he looked them all in the eye. "You've got a choice," he said. "Help me clean this house from the inside or watch it burn from the outside." No one spoke, but one by one they began to nod. And miles away, in a cafe near the Loop, Monique Harris sat across from Nathaniel Cooper once more. Her eyes no longer glittered with charm. "He's not going quietly," she said. Nathaniel smirked. "Then maybe it's time we stop being quiet, too." He slid a black folder across the table. Inside a list of names, judges, reporters, one federal clerk, Monique closed it slowly. "We bury them," she said. But outside across the street, Melissa Kate watched them from a city bus window. Her camera phone recorded every frame. The game wasn't quiet anymore, and the unraveling had only just begun. By Monday morning, Hunter Investments was no longer a financial fortress. It was a battlefield. The firm's internal servers were down for routine maintenance, but everyone knew better. Compliance teams worked overtime. Legal counsel whispered behind closed doors. HR flagged employee emails for keywords like offshore, Vaughan, whistleblower, and Travis Hunter. He didn't flinch. He stood in the center of it all, calm, clear-eyed, and ready for war. At his penthouse, Monique Harris sat alone in the winter light, phone pressed to her ear. "They're coming for us," she whispered. Nathaniel Cooper's voice on the other end was steady. "Let them. We don't run. We counterattack." "You said the papers were buried." "They were. Someone dug them up." "You don't get it," Monique hissed. "It's not Travis who's leading this. It's the girl. She's a child, and she's turning this whole damn tower inside out." There was a pause. Then Nathaniel said coldly, "Then maybe it's time we remind the world who holds the real power." At school, Melissa Kate tried to keep her head down, but it was impossible. Half her classmates stared like she was a ghost. The other half avoided her like she carried a virus. Some whispered traitor. Other heroes. She ignored them all. But as she opened her locker, a folded note fell out. She opened it carefully. "We know where you live. Stay silent. Stay safe." Her fingers trembled, but only for a moment. She tucked the note into her pocket, grabbed her books, and walked straight to the office. She told the principal everything. By the end of the day, Shanice Miller had secured a protection order for both Melissa and her mother. That night, Travis received a message from an unknown number. Just 4 words. "She's not worth it." He stared at the screen for a long time, then picked up the landline and called Shanice. "Can you get federal eyes on this yet? They're watching," she said. "But they need someone willing to testify publicly." Silence. Then Travis exhaled. "Then I will." The next morning, the Miami Tribune ran the story. CEO exposes internal conspiracy. Teen whistleblower linked to unraveling billion-dollar scheme. Melissa's name wasn't printed, but the story was everywhere. Talk radio, Twitter, morning TV. At a press briefing, Travis stood at a podium flanked by Shanice and 2 federal agents. "I was blind," he told the world. "Not just a fraud, but courage. A 1-2-year-old girl saved my company from the inside out, the same company that never once saw her beyond her mother's uniform." He paused. Let the silence settle. "She saw what we refused to, and from this day forward, we will see her." That afternoon, Melissa returned home to find a crowd gathered outside their apartment. Neighbors, journalists, a few strangers holding handwritten signs that read, "We believe Melissa. Truth has no age." She stopped at the bottom step, stunned. Her mother gently took her hand. "They're not here to hurt you. They're here to thank you." But somewhere across town, in a high-rise suite guarded by tinted glass, Nathaniel Cooper sat in silence. He stared at a single image on his tablet, a freeze frame of Melissa stepping onto the witness platform. Then he looked up at Monique, who paced behind him in tight circles. "She's still a kid," Monique snapped. You really think they'll let her bring us down? Nathaniel's voice was low, cold. Kids don't bring down empires. He leaned forward. Symbols do. He stood, slammed the tablet shut, and turned toward the door. Let's break her before she becomes one. The courthouse steps groaned under the weight of flashing cameras and murmuring crowds. Gray clouds hung low above downtown Miami, but the energy in the air was electric. Inside courtroom 12B, the air was stiffer, heavier. Travis Hunter adjusted his tie and glanced at the wooden double doors behind him. Shanice Miller stood by his side, reviewing her notes. Melissa Kate sat 2 rows behind them, dressed simply, hair neatly braided, eyes sharp with quiet fire. It was the first day of testimony. Nathaniel Cooper sat across the aisle with the calm demeanor of a man who believed money could erase anything. Monique Harris, poised in a slate-gray suit, sat beside him, her eyes empty, lips unmoving. The judge entered. All rise. Shanice opened with precision. She painted the picture not with fire, but with facts, contracts, dates, forensic analysis. One by one, she exposed the network of shell companies and forged authorizations that funneled corporate liabilities straight to Hunter Investments, while Cooper and Monique profited quietly offshore. Monique didn't look at Travis once. Then came the moment the courtroom had been waiting for. Shanice stood. Your Honor, I'd like to call Melissa Kate to the stand. Gasps fluttered. Reporters scribbled wildly. Melissa stepped forward slowly, not as a victim, not even as a child, but as the first person in the building who dared to speak the truth. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore in, and sat down. Shanice smiled gently. Miss Kate, how did you first come to be involved in this matter? Melissa's voice was steady. I was helping my mom on the 14th floor. She's on the night cleaning staff. I saw the contract in the copy room. The signature at the bottom didn't look right. And when I read the fine print, it didn't sound right either. Shanice nodded. What stood out to you? There was a clause buried deep. It transferred all liability from Cooper's firm to Mr. Hunter's company. If something went wrong, only one side would take the hit. Shanice leaned forward. Why speak up? You were 12. No one asked you to read it. Melissa looked directly at Monique, then Nathaniel, then back at the jury. Just because I clean your floors doesn't mean I don't see the dirt. The courtroom froze. Even the judge's expression shifted. Monique's hand twitched. Derek didn't smile this time. Cross-examination came hard. Van's attorney tried to rattle her. Miss Kate, did you understand all the legal terminology in that contract? No, sir, Melissa said. But I understood enough to know someone was hiding something. You consider yourself an expert in business law. But I don't think you need a degree to see when someone's being set up to fail. The jury watched her with new eyes. Not just a girl, but the voice of every overlooked worker who had ever been told to stay in their lane. After the recess, Travis took the stand. Shanice asked him one question. What made you believe her? He paused. My gut said she was right, but more than that, I remembered something I'd forgotten. And what was that? He looked toward Melissa. That integrity doesn't depend on status. Sometimes the janitor's daughter sees the cracks before the board does. Then Monique Harris took the stand. The courtroom held its breath. She sat tall, composed until the prosecution presented the audio file. If he does question it, then we remind him what he has to lose. Her eyes closed, hands folded, and for the first time since the trial began, Monique Harris spoke without rehearsed precision. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said, voice hollow. I thought if I could just push the deal through, Travis wouldn't have to know. And when Melissa exposed it? Shanice asked. Monique's voice cracked. I wanted her gone because she saw everything I had worked so hard to keep hidden. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited like wolves. Melissa exited through the side door. Travis followed behind her. You didn't have to come, she said. I owed it to you, he replied. To be the man you thought I was when you walked into that boardroom. She smiled faintly. You're getting there. Inside, Monique returned to her seat next to Cooper. She didn't speak, but her silence said enough. The empire was cracking. And in the eyes of the jury, they'd seen not just fraud, but betrayal, of trust, of truth, of the people no one thought would ever speak. Tomorrow they will deliberate. Tonight, the world waited. The verdict came just before noon. The jury filed in with solemn faces. Melissa sat between Shanice Miller and her mother, gripping the hem of her skirt. Travis Hunter stood behind them, hands clasped tightly in front of him. On the other side of the courtroom, Nathaniel Cooper smirked faintly. Monique Harris stared at the floor. The judge called the court to order. The four women stood. On the count of conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, we find the defendants guilty. On the count of falsifying financial documents, guilty. On the count of obstruction and tampering with legal contracts, guilty. Each word fell like a gavel striking stone, a lifetime of manipulation undone. Nathaniel's smirk vanished. Monique closed her eyes. The judge issued the sentence swiftly. 10 years in federal prison for both defendants with no chance of parole in the first 7. Melissa exhaled for the first time in days. Outside the courthouse, the world had changed. Reporters shouted questions. Microphones thrust forward. Melissa, how does it feel to be the girl who saved a corporation? Mr. Hunter, will you rebuild Hunter Investments? Shanice, what's next for your young witness? Melissa didn't answer them all. Just one. What do you want people to remember from this case? She paused, then looked directly at the nearest camera. That truth doesn't depend on your title, and justice doesn't care how clean your shoes are. In the weeks that followed, Hunter Investments didn't collapse. It was reformed. Travis Hunter initiated a full restructuring. Monique's name was removed from every official board record. Van's assets were frozen. Shanice Miller was brought on as chief ethics counsel, and Melissa Kate, she was offered a full scholarship. At a press conference inside the building she once cleaned, Travis announced the news personally. Today, Hunter Investments is establishing the Melissa Kate Fellowship for Young Minds with Vision and Courage. Melissa didn't just protect this company, she reminded us who we are supposed to be. Applause rose like thunder. Melissa stood beside him, blazer over a white blouse, the faintest smile on her lips. Later that night, Travis sat in his office. Not alone. Melissa stood across from him, holding a manila envelope. I got my Columbia acceptance letter, she said, eyes shining. He smiled. You earned more than that. You've got a seat at any table you want now. She hesitated, then asked, Do you regret any of it? He looked out the window, the skyline of Miami glowing gold. I regret that I didn't see it coming, he said softly. But I don't regret who stood up when I couldn't. She nodded, then left the envelope on his desk. Days later, Monique Harris was processed into the Federal Detention Center in Houston. She made no statement, no appeal, only silence. In a cold, concrete cell, her empire reduced to static in the news. She replayed the audio that sealed her fate. Just because I clean your floors doesn't mean I don't see the dirt. The words echoed again and again. In a quiet office above a city reborn, Travis placed Melissa's envelope on a shelf above his desk, beside his most treasured awards, and beside it, a plaque read, Truth isn't loud, but it lasts. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes. A girl once pointed to a signature and changed everything. And now, from the ashes of deceit, a new foundation stood tall, cleaner, stronger, and unshakably honest. The empire hadn't fallen. It had been rebuilt by the one they never saw,